This is Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast, episode number 212. Today's episode is a doozy. We break some myths about the concept of work life integration and share how work life balance really is possible with a polarity mindset and a strategy. Stay tuned to learn more. Welcome back to Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. This is the only podcast that shows you how to leverage polarity intelligence, an essential competency for healthcare leaders, and the missing logic in healthcare, so you can create healthy, healing organizations and become a thriving, resilient, and unstoppable healthcare leader.
We are your hosts, Tracy Christofferson and Michelle Trosett. We've been best friends and colleagues for over 30 years. And during that time, we coached healthcare leaders across North America around how to create healthy, healing organizations.
Today, we coach healthcare leaders and leadership teams to live thriving, resilient, and balanced lives, combat burnout, and create the best places to give and receive care.
This podcast is for the unsung hero of healthcare, the healthcare leader. We want you to know we see you and we'll be here for you each week. In this podcast, we're going to challenge healthcare's industry norms, flip limiting beliefs, and share proven strategies so you can be your best self at work and at home, live and lead intentionally, and experience well-being and joy.
We are glad you are here and look forward to sharing the journey with you. If you aren't totally convinced this podcast is for you, just listen to a few episodes and convince yourself.
Welcome to another episode of Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. I am one of the hosts of this show, Tracy.
And I am the other. My name is Michelle.
In case you don't know us, haven't heard us before, never seen us before, that's who we are.
That's who we are. We are the dynamic co-hosts of this phenomenal podcast, and we thank you for being here today.
Yeah. We are happy to be here too, right?
We are.
We are. I'm just trying to keep my mouth in front of the microphone.
Tracy low talks.
I low talk, and when I shift my head, then you can't hear me, so I'm trying to be very intentional today. Speak clearly and into the microphone. So today we're talking about one of our favorite topics to talk about. It's kind of a combination of things, but you know, what's spurring it on really is kind of what's really been happening before the pandemic and since the pandemic, right? We're seeing increasing incidences of burnout, especially in healthcare workers, healthcare leaders. And there's some false assumptions out there too.
Yes, there is.
Right? About work-life balance. Is it possible? Is it not possible? Work-life integration. Is that the way to go? Like people are just kind of trying to find their way out of burnout and into a more balanced life.
Yes, and I think we're hearing more and more of the words work-life integration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's some, I think there's some false beliefs about that. We're going to explore a little bit of that. We're going to explore the possibilities of work-life balance as well. The other thing that's out there is who's responsible? Who's gonna alleviate my burnout? Who's responsible? Am I responsible or is the organization responsible?
Not me. I'm not responsible.
Oh gosh, no. So, there's a combination of things here, right? There's some interdependencies, and we're not saying individuals alone are responsible for their burnout and for their work-life balance. There's definitely elements within the organizations that contribute to burnout. Our environments have a significant impact on us, but it's not the organization or the system alone either, right? So it's the both and.
It is the both and. And I think what really drove us to talk about this topic on a podcast now, it's certainly not a new topic for us. We've been talking about it for a long time, is because things are so out of balance for people individually and at an organizational level when it comes to this concept. We're hearing people like leaders talk about work-life integration more. Authors talk about work-life integration more. Podcast hosts talk about work-life integration more. We're like, we need to get on our podcast and talk about this some more.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, the way you look at a problem is the problem.
Yes, it is.
And if you
Exactly.
don't understand all aspects of it, it can lead to false choices.
Mhm.
So, Michelle, why don't we talk a little bit about what we mean when we say work-life integration and work-life balance? Let's go there.
Yeah. So, for a definition of work life integration, it's really blending both the personal and professional responsibilities rather than seeing them as separate entities. So we look at them all together and are the synergies in all of these areas that define our life. So it's all together. And then that also removes boundaries between your personal life and your professional life as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the definition of work-life balance and how some people define it is it's equal prioritization of how, your work priorities and your personal priorities, so they're equally distributed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, but the thing about it is we're all after the same outcomes, right? We all want joy in our life. We all want that harmony. We all want that sense of peace. We're all striving for the same thing. But when it comes to work-life balance, what we've learned is we all have our different why of what that looks like for us, because it's going to look different for each person.
Yeah. Yeah, it will. And I think, both of these approaches are trying to get to the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is about, we value both. We
Mhm.
want a thriving work life and a thriving home life. And so that's what we're kind of after. We value both. And so we're always looking for the solution.
Right.
What is the solution to this problem of a lack of work life balance or a lack of balance between my professional life and my personal life? But what many don't realize is this isn't a problem that can be solved. And so that's why we wanted to talk about it today. And if you're like many of the healthcare leaders that we talk with and that we work with, you're probably pretty much drowning or barely keeping your head above water these days with all the tensions and the expectations and the challenges that you're facing. And you're missing time with your family, giving that up and feeling guilty about it every time you do.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably also, many of you are experiencing exhaustion. And some of you, before you even get to work in the morning, you're exhausted just thinking about it, just making the effort to get to work. And just when you feel like you're getting your head above water, when you've got a handle on something, something else comes along and you feel like somebody's got their hand on the top of your head and just shoving you 3 feet underwater again, right? Anybody, I'm sure many can relate to that, right? I've had that feeling as myself. And no matter what you do, you just can't get a handle on it. You just can't figure it out. And so you're always wondering, why can't I get this?
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with me? Why can't I get this right? And, you're feeling these tensions in both sides of your life on an ongoing basis, and it becomes like a game of whack-a-mole. And you're just kind of trying to squash the tension down here and then squash it down over there in your work life, squash it down here in your home life. And that's all you end up doing is trying to alleviate this tension either on one side of your life or the other side of your life. So you're just constantly playing this game of whack-a-mole, and it just leaves you even more exhausted.
Right. And the challenge is how we look at it, right? Do we look at it as a problem again? And then that creates these false choices. I have to either look at it this way or I have to look at it this way. And that, there is an ideal state of work-life balance. And so I just have to figure it out. And I'm look at it as I either choose this or I choose that. I choose my career and I focus on that, or I choose my family and I focus on that.
Yeah, and these are false choices.
They're right.
It's not an either or.
It's not. But that's the way your mind starts working. I got to run over here to your point. I got to run over there, and I got to look at this side of my life. Or we look at it like it's a smash up where everything comes together in one big ball. There's no boundaries. And then that's not a right choice either. That's a false choice as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're kind of left to believe that work-life balance is not possible.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where we end up because we can't seem to make it happen. We think it doesn't exist, but It does.
It does. There is a way.
It does. It does. So we can understand why you might get that deep-seated belief after years of trying to create balance, years of making either or choices, years of playing whack-a-mole. But it's not either or. It is a both and. It's both professional life and personal life, or both work and home. They're not competing with each other, even though they seem to be competing with each other, even though you feel like your work life competes with your home life all the time. They're not in competition with each other, and they're not the same thing. So you can't mash them together like they're one. Your personal life and your professional life are separate. They're unique, but they do have an interdependency between the two.
Yeah, they
There
do.
is an interdependency. So, this lack of work life balance, like we said, is not a problem. It's actually a polarity. And what you've got are two interdependent values that need each other over time, right? To achieve that greater purpose that Michelle spoke about, that why. They're bound together. There's an energy that binds these two together and yet keeps them separate. And this is why work life integration doesn't work. You can't ignore a natural universal principle like balance. Everything strives to be balanced. Everything
Yes.
in life strives to be in balance. And the same is true for your work life and your home life, or your professional life and your personal life. And it's about leveraging this energy between the two, not letting it work on you, but working with it and creating what we call dynamic balance. So it's just a different way to look at it, because life happens
All the time.
all the time. Okay. Life happens. It isn't predictable. You don't know what's around the next corner. There are always going to be times in your life where you're going to be pulled one way more than another. Sometimes it's towards your home life. Maybe you have an ill child or an ill parent, or something's happening in your personal life, and you're pulled and drawn to give a lot of attention to that. There may be other times, like during the pandemic, for healthcare workers and leaders, where you were pulled and drawn to the workforce, right? To support the workforce, to care for the people in your communities. And you're going to be pulled more one way than another. And that is just life. So it's not about either or. It's about the dynamic and finding the way to leverage this energy that sits between the two in a very in a way that creates a virtuous cycle, keeps you moving towards that greater purpose, towards your why, even when it doesn't seem possible to do that.
So, really, the call to action for you is to really think about what is your greater purpose. And again, this is going to be different for every one of us. This is your why. When you think about your personal life and your professional life, what is your why? Why is it so important for you to have the best in both of these aspects of your life? And that takes reflection,
Mm-hmm.
that takes thought. But you know what's so great about it is you get to decide it. No one else decides it.
No. But
Right?
then you got to commit to it.
Then you have to commit to
Right?
it.
Once you decide, you can say, "Oh, this is what matters to me," and then keep doing what you're doing. But you got to make a commitment to actually achieve that, to have that in your life. Yeah.
Yes. And then I think when you really own it for what it looks like for you, that commitment becomes easier. So that's why that reflection time is so important, that you make that time for yourself. And then you can control what you can. So you can control your inner desires, your inner state of what you want to experience on both aspects of your life. You can control your beliefs about that as well, right? No one else controls your beliefs. You control your own beliefs. And you can put your attention to where it needs to be, and also your behaviors and your responses to different things that may come up in your personal life or your professional life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's having that clarity and being clear in your greater purpose.
Well, it's
That makes a
shifting
big
where you need
difference.
to, right? When you're committed to this greater purpose, to this why, then you shift the beliefs that don't serve that
Yes.
purpose, right?
Right.
You behave differently. You make different choices to make that come to life. And that's where the commitment comes in. It's you have to put it into action.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put those desires into action. You have to make the changes that are necessary to make it a reality, and to live the life that you want, not and to live a successful life as you decide it is. Like you said, you
Yeah.
decide on what success is. So it's really about, what do I want success to look like for me? Not following the norms, not following what somebody else expects, but what do you want? What's your success factor?
That's what's exciting. You get
Yeah.
to decide.
Yeah. And there's really kind of two main factors, I think. There's a lot of things that influence work-life balance,
Hmm.
or balancing, your professional life and your personal life. But I think, there's two factors that we found like are just critical. And one is mindful choices. So again, this is about clarity on the why and priorities. What are your priorities? Because whatever you give your attention to is your priority. Okay. So when you think about how you use your time, where you're spending your time, the choices that you're making, they're based on your priorities. And when you consciously choose based on the priorities you've identified or the things you want to be your priorities, that's a different outcome, right? And we can be spending our time on things that we don't really want to be our priorities, but because we're giving them time, they are our priorities. So you can, to Michelle's point, it's that awareness, that reflection, stepping back to say, gee, where have I been spending my time?
Right.
If I'm not spending time with my family, then what's my priority? If I'm not spending time on myself or taking care of my health, what's my priority? So your actions will tell you exactly what your priorities are, and you're always choosing. Every moment you are at choice. I know sometimes you don't feel like you have a choice, but you're always choosing. You just may not like the choices that you have to make. May not be easy choices, may not feel real comfortable, but you always have a choice and you are always at choice and always choosing.
And the other significant factor that has an impact on your work-life balance is habits.
Mm.
So this has a tremendous impact, and you can look at there's two different ways to look at this. One is establishing new habits. So again, that's looking at what are those things I can put into place that can really help me be my best at work and at home. And this could be stopping things that I've done before, right? So always saying yes all the time. That is a big habit that people need to change. I know it's something that we both have worked on.
Oh,
Is It's
yes.
so easy to say yes to too many people. That is both personally and professionally. So you have to establish boundaries and saying no, and that's a new habit for many people. Another habit is that you just believe that you don't have a choice. That's a thought habit. I don't have a choice. I have to show up at work 24/7 if I'm needed, or I have to
Mhm.
be at my family's every beck and call when they need me, when there may be other choices or other habits that you can put into place. So, habits are really significant, and they don't have to be major changes either. You can put in small habits along the way that really help with your work life balance.
Mhm.
So, something that Tracy and I do is we do regular check ins with each other. It's
Mhm.
just a habit. So, we can help each other with our work life balance and how we're being balanced at Missing Logic. And my husband and I, we have a check in every Sunday to look at our week and to put different things in place. So, that's become a habit now. We just do that every Sunday, and it pays great dividends when it comes to how we're balancing our professional lives and our work lives. So habits are extremely important on both sides,
Yeah,
personal
they are.
life and professional life.
Yep. And when you need to take actions that will get you to the why, you want them to be habits so that you don't have to keep trying to decide whether you're going to do it or not. If it's a
Yes.
habit, you just do it.
Hmm.
It just becomes a part of who you are. It's subconscious action, just like what you do every morning when you get up.
Hmm.
I get up, I do the same 3 things every morning, right? And most people do. They have a morning habit. As soon as they get out of bed, their feet hit the ground, they have a couple of things that they do just routinely. They don't think about it, right? It's just like when you walk in a dark room, you hit a light switch. That's a habit. Your brain is trained, this is what I do.
Right.
This is how I respond in this situation. So that's what you're after. Get it so it's a habit, and then it just becomes natural and normal for you,
Easier.
right? Easy,
Easy.
effortless. Yeah. Easy, easy, easy. Because life happens, right? Because it does happen. And it happens either as you design it or it can happen to you. So, you can pause and take a good look at your life. Um, And, whatever you've committed to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you commit to right now, if it's not what you want, then you have the power to change it. You always have the choice to make a different choice, um, and to design the life that you want, decide what success looks like, decide what dynamic balance looks like for you. It is dynamic, so it's always changing. Um, and just go there, right?
Exactly. And when you do experience this dynamic balance that we're talking about, when you look at the both and of your professional life and your personal life, you will have healthy relationships both at work and at home because it does impact both greatly.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you're contributing to something bigger. It helps remind you this isn't just about in this moment trying to whack a mole.
Yeah.
It's a bigger picture that I'm stepping into, and you'll feel that will bring you great success and more joy. And you'll be able to be more present with your family, which is what we really want. Again, it's not a matter of how much time, but it's the intention and the habits that you put in place so that when you are with them, you're really with them. And also your larger community, just that contributing to something much bigger than yourself
Mm-hmm.
is another positive outcome. And you're really thriving both at work and at home.
Yeah, and thriving in the relationships at work too. Like
Mm-hmm.
how you're showing, like when you're out of balance personally and professionally, it shows up in all areas of your life, right? While you think you're giving a lot of attention maybe to work, you can still have dysfunctional relationships there because you're stressed, because you're not in balance, because you're struggling, right? But you're trying to give everything you can to it. So again, you got to do the things that are filling you up on the personal side so you can show up your best when you're at work.
And sometimes it's helpful to think about someone in your life that maybe was a really good role model for you.
Yeah.
And having balance, right? So, and sometimes it's helpful to think about those people that are good role models too, and how you don't want to be like them.
True. We've all had a lot of those, I think.
I think there's plenty of those.
Mhm.
But Tracy, one of the first people that really helped me understand boundaries, I think this dynamic balance was our mentor, Bonnie. And Bonnie Wazorek, and we've known her for many, many years. But she was just someone that I was able to observe, just bring her best to work, be fully present, and being in conversations with people. And you knew she was very present with you because that's where her mind was at. It wasn't at another place. But also prioritizing her family and having boundaries for where she would be and where she wouldn't be because of commitments. And so I really learned a lot from her, and it was
Mhm.
someone that
Mhm.
I tried to emulate as I built my professional career and worked with our work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're smiling.
I'm smiling because I think we learned a lot from Bonnie about doing that, but we also learned about working hard from Bonnie. I love you, Bonnie. But we learned what it meant to be committed to a movement, to be
Yes.
committed to a purpose. And so again, there are times in your life when you're called to serve, you're called to a purpose. And it is just like Michelle and I now are called to a purpose. This has been a really hard time for us recently. It's not, we're giving everything and trying to maintain balance at the same time. And we are not perfect. This is an ongoing journey. Every moment is dynamic. Our life
Yes.
is happening all around us. Michelle's had significant losses over the last couple of years that have really, impacted her personal life, her personally. We have a growing business that impacts both of us, right? Growing our business. So it's just that, there's no end point to this. So if you're looking to get to nirvana, to the perfect work life balance where it just maintains itself, it isn't there, folks. I'm just going to tell you.
We'll tell you that right now.
This is dynamic, it's ongoing. And there are times where we find ourselves slipping, right?
Mhm.
Overemphasizing one part of our life, neglecting the other. We're lucky we have each other to remind each other, hey, or just to say the other day, I said to Michelle, I had to take 2 afternoons off. I'm done. I'm just toast. I've overemphasized the work part of my life for the last few weeks. I need a break and I
Mhm.
need to refill my bucket rejuvenate, and we have the kind of business and relationship where fine, do it, right?
I'm-
There's no, you can't go there. No,
No,
you got to
so
be
I'm
doing
glad
this,
you are.
this, that, or the other thing, right? You got to pay attention and you got to create, know what your priorities are. And in that moment, those were my priorities. I knew that I had been neglecting some things that were important to me, and important to my well-being. So, that we're just human beings like the rest of you. We're not coming at this from a place of having arrived. We're ongoing learners.
No.
Ongoing learners.
Sometimes we get tired of our own stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We
right?
got to stay in check.
Yeah. Well, that's why you surround yourself with people who
You
know
do.
what your intentions are, who know what you're trying to do. And you ask for support because it's not always easy. And you have blind spots. You can't always see, what's happening to you. And so we've learned the hard way, right? That we have to
Yes.
listen when other people say, hey, are you sure you're okay? I'm kind of noticing things aren't going so well, or, you've been really irritable lately, or whatever it is, right? Whatever your little signs are, they're similar and different for many of us. But anyway, we just want to tell you, we're real. We don't have this figured out completely, but we know what it is. We know how to leverage this energy. We know the importance of it, and we recognize that. And I think in our conversation today, what work-life integration is a false choice because it doesn't honor the natural principles that are at play here when it comes to balance and to polarities. And polarities cannot be denied. They're ongoing. They're always going to be present. You can't solve them. So to treat this like it's a problem that can be solved by smashing everything together, you're trying to work against a natural principle that exists in the universe, just like trying to break away from gravity. So we understand that. That's to our benefit. That's why we can stay in the game. That's why we know how to leverage these things. We know how to put an action strategy together to keep ourselves on track and to get back on track when we're not on track. And that's what's really important, I think, in the message that we're bringing today.
That is it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So now that we've said that, thanks for joining us for another episode of Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. And, we have a perspective paper on this. So we're going to put the link to that in the show notes, just where we go a little bit deeper into this difference between work-life balance and work-life integration and some things to consider around that. So feel free to download that. And, hey, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Yeah. And, you can connect with us on LinkedIn and let us know, kind of how you're managing this. Are you trying to do work-life integration? Have you given up on work-life balance? Share with us what your experiences are.
Yeah, because we know this is a hot topic, so don't be shy on this one.
That's right. That's right. And you can find out how to link to us in the show notes.
Yes.
So stay safe, stay healthy, get balanced. We'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast, now a top-rated podcast for healthcare leaders. Please share this podcast with other healthcare leaders and anyone else you think would benefit. We are certain that if you found value in it, they will too. If you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes. And also, it would mean the world to us if you took a quick moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast player. It helps to get the word out about our podcast and incredible guests. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to watch our podcasts. You can also follow us on our Missing Logic social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Until next time.